Welcome to Talking in Stations. This is Matterall. I'm here with Rundle. How are you doing, Rundle?
I'm doing great, citizens of New Eden. It's a Monday, it's a show, and I'm still not Astro-Ashi. Damn, I missed it. Can't do it.
I
What am I
like,
gonna say?
I like how you Charlie Brown fail at the end of it. It's hilarious. Also with me on camera here is friend of the show, Pservad. How are you doing, Pservad?
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am not Ashtarothi. He was not joining us here today, so you're stuck with us.
Yeah, he can do it. I can't. I'm
Hey, he did a pretty good job. Well, he goes to college.
He throws his arms out. Greetings, fellow Empyreans.
Yeah, he's the whole thing.
Really gets into it.
I'm not saying anybody should emulate that, by the way, but, whatever. Develop your own styles. Today we're going to talk about industry. What is industry? When people refer to industry in EVE Online, what are they talking about? And it's not as clear cut as you would think. So we thought, well, it'll take some time to actually look into different parts of it and talk about something that Pservad brought up earlier today, and that was the possibility of, instead of establishing yourself in a strong vertical position, actually becoming more diverse over products and becoming horizontal, something along those lines. We'll find out in a few minutes as he explains it to us. But first, let's go into some of the news that's going on with the war. This is from the last weekend. And as you can see, it's been a big weekend of destruction in Delve. I think those 6 Keepstars there that are destroyed are all from Delve, Aquarius region, and belong to Goon Swarm. And the pace is really just picking up. We covered that on yesterday's show. We talked a bit about just how fast it's going. There was some misinformation that we gave out because the counting is unclear. But we have good information now on how many Keepstars are still left. And we'll look at that. Gobbins actually put out something to his people that we intercepted in the public. And it says, let's do some math for today's post. 32 dead Imperium Keepstars this war so far. 28 kill mails. You can look them up on Zkill. There's the no kill mail for F2O. That was a kill mail that never generated, so it's not listed anywhere. That's one. Plus the 28 that he started with. The definitely not Goon one in KQK. I don't know what that means. The stolen one in K6. There was one that was picked off and taken by NC when it was being taken down for removal. And the ganked one in WTAC-K, which was a system right next door, where one was successfully removed, or I should say unanchored, put into a freighter. When the freighter was trying to get away, it was shot and destroyed. It's considered a dead Keepstar. So that totals the 32 dead Keepstars in Delve. And as we can see, 6 of those went down since Friday. So the pace is really moving pretty fast, and it seems to be picking up speed, which we were not expecting. We were expecting things to actually get moving rapidly, but we did not expect it to go this fast. So we'll see what happens in the next few weeks, how long it takes the Pappy forces to really cleanse Delve of most of its structures that belong to the Imperium. Now remember, Delve still has the constellation of 1DQ. So 1DQ has, I believe, 5 in the actual system of 1DQ, but there are more than just that. There is...
You mean in terms of Keepstars, or like around the constellation?
Constellation, yeah. In total, we said, by the way, we said there were 9 Keepstars left, under 10 Keepstars left outside of 1DQ. What we meant was the 1DQ constellation, which has more than 5. So total, there are 16 Keepstars outside of 1DQ, not 9.
And is the price, is that 60 billion price differential that you're showing here between the most, the most valuable on the left? Is that the core? Is that what happened there? I thought the cores were only 50 billion.
I don't know how much the cores are in Keepstars. I thought they were 30. I could take a look, or actually, if you
maybe.
could take a look, yeah, look it up.
Yeah, I'll take a peek.
Thanks.
Sorry.
I'm going to read off some of the Keepstars where they are now, and there is one that the armor timer is up in about a day, 24 hours. That is in YQX. But they're also in, here are the Keepstars that are still alive outside of 1DQ. YQX, BX TAC, BTAC 7, 3 TAC D, NTAC 8, 8WA, 5BTK, MO TAC, Y TAC O. That's inside of the constellation where 1DQ is. UEXO, PUIG TAC, OTAC H, PS TAC 9, 31X TAC, 7UTB, Q TAC O. Those are the 16 Keepstars outside of Delve that are still functional. And then you have the 5 inside of 1DQ, and those bring the total of 21 Keepstars. So there are still 21 Keepstars inside of Delve. And we look at that because that was really the wall. That was the measurement of power. And really the intimidating mountain that anybody who attacked Delve would have to climb. So looks like it's being climbed. So there it is. Did you find the core information?
Yeah, cores and rigs. Those were the difference.
Cores and rigs on those. Okay.
Yep, cores and rigs. Basically, a couple rigs, 20 bill, so it'd be 40. 20 bill there, and the 30, and just some change here and there, a slight difference between them, but basically those are the big issues.
Yeah.
Or big differences. Sorry, not issues.
Right. We have pictures of all those Keepstars too. Somebody sent to me, so. We're not putting them up because it'll take a while to get through them. But the point is, 21 Keepstars are left in Delve. 5 of those are in 1DQ. 16 of those are outside of 1DQ, and 32 have been destroyed. So a little bit more than halfway, or actually more like 2/3. All right. We have other news out there, Rundle?
I think there's a little bit. I think there's been some counterpunching by the Imperium. That's certain.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a few other fights here and there. I think trying to see where that data was. I'm sorry.
No problem. Let me show.
Yeah, I think so. There was a Keepstar that was defended by Imperium. There was a tight fight over some Titans, but the Titans got out.
Oh yeah. That was we saw that today in Talking in Stations.
Yeah, YQX stack 7U.
They were assaulting a Keepstar near downtime. That was Noros and friends, and they got 4 Titans sucked into a drag bubble that put them right on the Keepstar, which means the Keepstar could engage them. There was also a ton of bombers. Let's see if we don't have any footage of that or anything, do we?
Right.
And 2 of the Titans actually jumped out right away, and so they were safe. One, I don't know what happened to that one. Might have logged off, but the last Titan that was trapped was Noros, and they had to throw in a bunch of fax machines to save him. So they basically saved that Titan until downtime hit, and then took him off the field. So nobody was destroyed, but it was a very close call and a really good ambush by the Imperium. And they almost got a Titan from Noros' group, Noros himself, actually.
Yep. That was a pretty big fight.
I think they lost 8. The Pappy forces lost 8. What'd they lose? 8 fax machines or something.
Yeah, I'm looking it up here.
I don't think I have a link to that battle report. What was that, YXQ?
Yes.
That was in Aquarius then. There it is. So that was right before downtime, which is less than 24 hours. So you can see the spikes of population. Wow, it got up to nearly. That's I think we're looking at this though, about 1,000 people in there.
6 faxes, 17.5 billion lost there. Number of frigates, number of let's see, yeah, basically a bit of some frigates. It was faxes basically that were the main things contributed to the total loss.
Yeah. All right. So look out there. So okay, now Pservad, you and I were talking earlier about industry, and you asked a question. You want to repeat the question? Let's just have that discussion over again.
Sure. So I've been watching the shows and really enjoying the industry-related shows, since that's more my gameplay than PvP. And we've had some real experienced builders on and very knowledgeable. And I noticed that a lot of the discussion simply assumed that that a particular approach to industry, which is vertical integration. That means, so what do you think about vertical integration? Well, it's called vertical because you're trying to reach down into the supply chain to the environment to control as much of the manufacturing process as possible, capture maximum value. So a vertically integrated outfit would, you go out there with a mining laser, you store the ore, then you process it, and build components, and you put components into a capital ship or whatever it is that you're building, and you keep every stage of the process in-house. And the way that you expand, or excuse me, the way you increase the efficiency of your operation is through superior rigs, superior structures, better skills for your resource extraction. It's all based around trying to squeeze maximum value out of the environment. And if you're fully vertically integrated, you capture, or at least you maintain in-house in your organization, 100% of the value of that item, right? Starting from the asteroid belt and working your way all the way to the Titan or the mining barge or whatever. So that's one approach to industry, and it has a number of advantages. One is, like I say, you capture maximum share of the value chain, but it's not dependent on functioning markets, right? You can do that you can do it in Omist or Wicked Creek or some other remote area of nullsec. As long as you can get access to space where the resources you need are present, and you have production facilities, you can build what you need. At least in HiSec, however, this is not actually how most of the goods on market get produced. The production process is much more well, there's no good reason to try to keep your production process in-house if you're located primarily in high security space, because you have access to all the resources that you need in a market, right? So if I need tritanium, let's say I need 10 million tritanium to make a mining barge, well, I can go out there in a venture or a skiff or whatever, and I can mine it myself. But if I have 20 million ISK, I can also just buy it off the market, and that's a lot faster, right? So what happens is the market in HiSec basically acts as facilitator for exchanges that in a vertically integrated outfit they would handle on their spreadsheet or through their internal trade channel or something like that. So I cooperate with a lot of people in HiSec who I never meet, talk to. I don't know. I could find out who they are if I want to, but I have very little reason to do that. And so if this strategy, which I would describe as horizontal integration, is different from vertical integration in that you're not starting with the asteroid belt and the mining laser. You're starting with the market. You say, okay, I want to make a Titan or a mining barge or whatever. These are the input components that I need, and this is what they cost currently on the market. I'm going to buy the raw materials that I want from the market, run them through the blueprint, and then I'm going to post the finished good. And so I'm only capturing a part of the total production process, but I'm extracting maximum value out of the particular part that I'm trying to capture, right? Because if I have a spreadsheet and I know the conversion between input and output for hundreds of items at a glance, then I can see, well, the best use for my titanium or my pyrite is not to make a venture, it's to make a skiff or whatever the T1 mining barge is. I forget what it's called. So you pick and you choose which item you think is going to be the most profitable, and you just run that conversion over and over and over again. Raw material purchased from the market into the blueprint. You sell the finished good for ISK. You buy more raw material, and you just keep running that cycle over and over and over again. Yeah. And so your expansion in that respect is not to squeeze more productivity out of the market. It's to carry more items, right? I sell one mining barge today. I'm going to sell 10 tomorrow, 100 the next day, etc. So it's a horizontal strategy.
A better way. Okay, so that's a horizontal strategy, different from the vertical strategy. Let me see if I can understand it myself. Vertical strategy is to squeeze out every layer of discounts that you can get. So I'll do my own mining, save myself a little bit of money by taking out a middleman. I'll do my own refining in my own structure to get a better return on my yield for refining. I'll take those minerals and I'll build inside my own engineering complex, cut out any middleman, and get discounts for using my own structure in deep space, for instance. And I'm constantly ratcheting down my operation cost to get to a product. That's vertical. So you go from mining to refining to building to hauling to putting on the market and selling. And you do from top to bottom the whole vertical. And horizontal is saying, don't waste your time doing all that. Instead, just buy the level of ingredients you want. Either buy the minerals from the market and build, or buy the actual thing itself. But you're going to go vertical in that you're offering different products. So I'm going to sell this mining barge, but I'm also going to sell some fittings that go with it. I'm also going to sell a mining barge that's T1 version of that T2. So you're diversifying your offerings and just resourcing off the market. And that's where you're spending your time.
Yeah, so another way to think of it is, let's say that somebody pursuing a vertical integration strategy, they sell 10 orcas, let's say at 100 million ISK each, and they ask themselves, how can I improve the efficiency of my industrial operation? They're going to look and say, okay, I'm going to buy another Athenor because that way I can mine another moon, or I'm going to put a T2 rig on a structure I already have, or I'm going to, I'm going to try to recruit some new people. Maybe I'll buy another battleship so I can better control my space. It's all going to be tied in some way to space and infrastructure and to people, to the kind of nuts and bolts of the organization. But if I'm pursuing a horizontal strategy and I suddenly realize a profit of $1 billion ISK, then I'm going to say, well, okay, I'm doing pretty good selling orcas. Now let me sell apocalypses, or let me sell Megatron, or what have you. It's not going to cross my mind probably to buy an Athenor because, well, I'm probably doing it myself or in a very small group. So I probably don't have the muscle to defend the thing if I have it. You don't need to control the physical space in the same way. So you're not gaining efficiency in that respect, but you're also you don't have the hassle of protecting it, of moving it, of managing people. You don't have to do all the things that go along with running a corporation, and you can achieve a very high level of capitalization, without ever bothering with that.
There's a comment here that might interest you. It's from BB. BBQ King Master, who says, and also horizontal integration makes you blind to the market fluctuations. I don't know what that means. Makes you blind.
Yeah, I'd have to unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know what he means there. I've thought he was saying it makes you more or less vulnerable to market fluctuations because you can move faster. If I spend a bunch of time in startup costs, setting up my structures, setting up my situation, then I'm already in debt to like make a profit. And if I was going to build drones and all of a sudden drones are out of favor, now my whole production line is not going to be as profitable as I thought it was going to be. So you're kind of stuck in a little further and not as flexible if you're being horizontal. Whereas if you're buying stuff off the market, you can probably react. And because you're diversified, you can probably not get as hurt by any market fluctuations in what is desired product at the time.
Well, so market orders can sometimes take a long time to move, right? Because you're penalized for constantly updating them. It used to be you just thought one ISK it, once a day, and your stuff would move pretty fast, but they got rid of that. So your main capitalization for a horizontal integration strategy is just going to have, you could have hundreds of market orders, though, right? I'm not going to sit there and nurse my Orca every day, updating. I'm just going to set it at the price that I think is right and move on. And so if you have, I don't know, 10 billion ISK, let's say, it's not going to be in a Tatara with a T2 rig. It's going to be in 50 large open orders. So in that sense, if there's a large change in the price of raw materials, well, there's also a large change in the price of production for your competitors, right? So you are pretty exposed to market fluctuations in that respect.
It's a diversification through what you're selling without being tied to the production chain of what you're selling. Where a vertical is you've tied yourself to the production chain to get so if you want to sell 20 different things and you have to have the production line or some hand in the production to get every last ISK optimization, right? So that'd be the vertical. The horizontal just says, I'm going to take my equity and I'm going to buy things. I'm going to try to manage through buy-sell margin. And then you diversify across the market that way. I think that's right. In essence what you're describing.
Quick correction.
Yeah, that's
Barbecue King Master wrote vertical. He wrote horizontal, but he meant to write vertical. Makes you blind to market fluctuations. So
yeah, and so I think that's a really good point that he makes. And sometimes because the vertical integration strategy, your primary point of contact is with the sale of the finished good, right? Your eye isn't on the market. It's on the asteroid belt. It's on the Athanor. It's on controlling your space. And so a lot of the decisions that vertically integrated industrial outfits make, like to me, the industry I do is an extension of the market. Like, it's not clear to me at all why you would want that decision. For example, a lot of times in industry, we talk about the size of people's stockpiles, right? And stockpiles are so large, or they're run down stockpile. And it seems to be like like an accomplishment, like a badge of honor to have a huge stockpile, right? So you can make whatever you want at a moment's notice. But if you're pursuing a horizontal strategy, you're not going to look at your stockpile as potential production. You're going to look at it as ISK that is locked into, that is sitting there in a hard asset, but is convertible at any time, right? So if, let's say, I'm not going to try to have as big a stockpile as I can on that strategy. I'm going to try to have as small a stockpile as possible, because ISK that's tied up in Veldspar sitting in my hangar is not out there working for me. Right? It's just sitting there. It's just inert. Unless I want to speculate on the price of raw materials, I can hold it for that reason.
Which works sometimes.
Yeah, well, if you stockpile Veldspar 2 weeks ago, you're sitting pretty good right now.
Well, no, because it might go down. I mean, right now you're sitting good, but it will go down later. Anyway, I threw you off. Go ahead.
So, well, from my point of view, doing a horizontally integrated strategy, I would just never try to stockpile maximum amount of that material. If the price jumps 20%, let's say recently the price of ore has jumped 50, sometimes 100%. Well, I bought that stuff hoping to make a 20% return, right? All right, I'm out. I'm going to take the money and run. I'm not going to try to make an orca to squeeze an extra 10% out of those materials because I don't know that orca is going to sell.
Yeah.
It could take months.
Yeah, and they also say the real money in industry, at least T2 building, is in reactions. Like that is the one that is hardest to do because you need to have a place that can do reactions, and that used to be a long time ago. A pause. You needed to have like the right permissions in a corporation to be able to use the facilities that had arrays in it, so you could refine. To react, and so it was always kind of a bottleneck. Like in other words, the reaction part of the T2 production line was the one where you needed a little more permission from your group to handle that stuff, which meant that it was a little more selective about who could actually react things. And so that is kind of where the money was. If you decided just to sell reactions, you would make out okay. You didn't have to build the whole product. And if you were building the T2 product and couldn't do reactions, that's where your main cost was. People who could do reactions.
Yeah, so it is a sound strategy in market to look for bottlenecks and to try to solve them. The bottleneck is a problem for a lot of people. People pay to have their problems solved. If they could solve it themselves, they'd probably do it. So if you can solve those problems for other people, that's where you're going to achieve maximum return on value. And, a lot of people cannot do reactions because they don't have the permissions. There are some publicly accessible refineries, but they are in dangerous places, and there aren't that many of them. That's where a lot of the value is.
Mm. Yeah. Well, this led to a bigger conversation where I started saying like, well, isn't that just marketing and trading as opposed to industry? And then we started talking about, well, what is industry? Is it harvesting? Is industry building, manufacturing? Is industry hauling to the market? Is industry putting stuff on the market? And what kind of different gameplay considerations are in all these different aspects? And is industry all of them? Like, what do you think? What is industry?
Well, there are at least 4 distinct activities that are kind of are not well differentiated, but are all parts that are not well differentiated under this blanket term industry. But they're all necessary parts of somebody has to do these things to get a finished good to market. First is resource gathering, mining, planetary production, things like that. Second is the actual production, which is not just clicking start on a blueprint. Of course, that's part of it, but if you also have to manage your inventory, right? Like, how much ISK do I want to have tied up in Veldspar right now? That's not a trivial choice because, hey, if you stockpile, let's say 10 billion Veldspar, well, if the price of Veldspar goes down 2%, then you lost, what, money. 200 million ISK? The more of that stuff you stockpile, the more exposed you are.
You haven't lost the money, but you're stuck, right? Now you're underwater. You can't get out of Veldspar. You got to hold it till it goes back up.
Yeah, you got to hold it, or you've got to try to make that ISK back on producing for a high value item. Let's say orcas are selling for. Well, here's a better example. During the winter event with the Sancha mining sites or whatever, they didn't let orcas in, but they did let porpoises in. Well, an orca and a porpoise use the same skill set, so if you wanted to do the event, you found yourself locked out of your orca, then you probably went to market to buy a porpoise. And I was selling porpoises as fast as I could build them back then for 50, 60% markup. It was really good item to be selling at that time. So if you could find things like that, you can make your ISK back on your raw materials then. But that's just like trying to claw back losses that you've basically already taken if you're in that position. The best way to not find yourself in that position is to not hold unlimited quantities of raw material, unless you've made a market decision that you want to speculate in that. So you're exposed, and you have to think about that exposure if you're doing manufacturing. So that's the second role. There's resource gathering, there's manufacturing. It also involves things like pricing. How much is a unit of titanium worth? Is it worth the estimated value? Is it worth the sale price in JITA? Is it worth the buy price in JITA? Well, hold on, I'm in Amar. What do I care about the price in JITA for?
That's right.
These are not trivial questions, and you have to kind of think about them if you're going to concentrate on the manufacturing element of it.
Yeah.
Third part would be the logistics. I mean, they're called industry ships for a reason. You need them to do industry. So you're going to have to move things around. Okay, I have 10 billion units of Veldspar that I need to move 3 jumps over, and one of those jumps is a low security system. That's not a trivial logistics challenge. You're going to have to think seriously about transportation, or you're going to need to employ the services of somebody who has. And that's 3. And then the fourth part is the market itself. Okay, now I have my Raven battleship or my Neutron blaster or whatever. I take it to market. Great, I'm sitting in JITA. Well, how much do I sell it for? Okay, I sell it for 1 ISK less than the highest order up. Is that the right strategy? Well, let's say there's a buy order that's open for 10% of what I made it for, of my cost of production. Maybe I should just cash out. I mean, hey, that's 10%, right? Why wait? But hold on. I know that the price of this item fluctuates. It's selling for 1 million ISK today, but I look on the market tab and I see it was selling for 1.4 million 2 weeks ago, and 1.6 million 4 weeks before that. And so I reasonably extrapolate. I say, well, the price may fluctuate again. Maybe I set it at 1.4 million and hold out for a better price. Well, there are reasons for doing all of these things. The point is that it's not a trivial question. You have to have a strategy. You have to think about what you're doing. All 4 of these parts of industry are essential, and they're essentially unrelated skill sets. I don't need to know anything about markets to move Veldspar. I don't need to know anything about moving Veldspar in order to mine it. Right, so I just don't. Industry is not a good word in my view. There's resource gathering, there's manufacturing, there's logistics, and there's markets, and you have to do somebody has to do all those things to turn a raw material into an ISK.
Yeah. Well, Rundle, what do you think industry is, and should it have a different name?
Well, I'm thinking for me the biggest thing that as you're listening to this, is really how the play style overlaps with these kind of 4 areas. I was curious what you thought. Well, what if you have any ideas of like the play style before I jump in and kind of throw some ideas?
Me or Pservad?
Pservad, sorry, because I want to hear his opinion before I kind of say what I want to say.
The play style,
so there's another level of depth and complexity here. There's those 4 industry types, but then there's the play styles of how people play as it relates to industry. Casual players, hardcore players, people who just tinker, people who don't care about maximizing ISK, they're just playing because they like playing, and hey, I built the ship that I'm flying in, sort of things, right?
Right. Well, mining is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, if somebody is starting off casually, then I mean they should just do the part that they enjoy. There are casual levels to to each of them. I think manufacturing is probably the hardest thing to do casually because, like the question, what is a unit of Veldspar worth? That involves a lot of brain sweat just to try to think about, the back and forth, the different aspects of it. It's kind of hard to see how you could do that casually and well. I mean, just to figure out whether you made any ISK or not on your drone, right?
Right.
Well, okay. Here, even if I know the conversion between the unit of Tritanium and my Infiltrator 1 drone, well, what did that Veldspar cost when I got it?
Yep.
Where did I get it? Yep. How do I control for that risk? Right? Is 10% volatility right? Is 20%? These are not really questions for the casual player, so I don't really recommend that for them.
So I think so I think the 4 types of industry, I think that's I think you're fairly accurate on that, because if I look at my alts, I have in my mind, I have alts that are specifically tied to resource gathering. I have those alts where they've literally trained very deeply those skill sets in resource, what's the word I'm looking for? Where the resource skills, so they can break down any ore and do all that stuff. Refining, thank you. I have an Orca pilot. I have the gatherers, so they can go out and do all the mining and do all that stuff. I have industry characters that are just solely around industry. I have those around. I have one that's just for market management. I have all those. I have those things, right? And I've forgotten your fourth one. I'm sorry.
Logistics.
The logistics. Oh, yeah. And I have very specific logistics pilots for jump freighters and moving. So I have very specific pilots to do all 4 of those things. I think, so I agree that industry is a kind of a very big term that touches on multiple things. I think players can individually play in any of those 4, but at some point, all 4 become important to you if you reach a certain level. And I think that level is usually driven by dependency. Number 1, dependency, and 2, gameplay engagement. I think if you feel that you don't want to be dependent on anyone, or you don't want to have a dependency on others to get what you want, I think that drives people to engage in all 4 type, and then that usually is the road towards ISK generation, right? You normally, always somewhere in EVE is like, how can I make more ISK? But if you just try kind of casual ways of doing it, it usually kind of falls. So what ends up happening is your ISK generation and your ISK and your gameplay, and having the tools, the toys, the modules, the ships, ultimately means you have to depend on someone else to build the thing, have it in market when you want it, where you want it, and at the time and the price you need it. And if you can somehow build it yourself, you're no longer dependent on any of those problems, in theory. And then there becomes your real big problem, because now you're dependent on getting all the materials, moving it around, making it yourself, and doing all that stuff. So to me, this question of dependency is a key element of industry, right?
Yeah, well, there's an old saying, I can do anything, but I can't do everything. So even if I've mastered all these skills and have all the characters trained up and have a deep knowledge of all the different aspects of the gameplay, it's still going to behoove me to cooperate with other players, just because I can't be everywhere, right?
Right. And then I think it's the other element is gameplay. What excites you? What interests you? If you want to sit and just listen to music and have a movie on, or forget about the kids in the background or whatever, then you might be mining and doing whatever, or you might be engaging in market warfare. And there's all sorts of other subtext to it. I think I'm sitting here trying to think: is there a fifth, arm of industry? And I think you more or less have it. I think there's sub fingers of the arms, but I think for the 4 arms that you have, I think that's a pretty fair way of looking at the overall business. If you want to go into business in EVE and you want to be a industrial tycoon, I think that's where the word industry is. You're going to get in. You're going to want to control all 4 aspects that you have laid out.
Yeah. Of course, though, if you're in high security space and you have Concord there to quote protect you, not always very efficiently, but they Concord cannot provide ultimate security, but they have pretty effectively constrained people who want to aggress you. They focus that aggression in very narrow and specific ways, and it becomes very predictable, and you can pretty effectively prevent losses. But if you want to get into those resource-rich areas and have that vertical integration, and want to mine better ore, and do things like that, then you have to think about security too. And like from an industrialist standpoint, most of what goes on in a PvP alliance is really just like the hard shell that protects their Athanor, right?
Yeah.
Right?
That could be a valid additional arm. I like Artur Bish in.
Hold on, Ron.
He said time is the other one. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me jump on that point because there was an article written a while ago. It was really good on INN by Elizabeth, a very good writer, and she basically postulated this game is a PvE game, and you PvPers are the visitors, basically. So everything revolves around protecting PvE. I thought that was a fun take.
There are a lot of players who primarily do PvE, and
EVE can be a solo game, absolutely.
That's why I started playing. I thought it could be a solo game.
Yeah,
I was right for many years, but
yeah, I agree. So the combat side, the protection, the security side, right? Whether or not you're just flying along in a combat ship to protect someone moving stuff to market or whatever, and for sure. But I want to explore again. Artur Bish here. He said the other arm of industry is time, and actually that's a very interesting thought. Time is, like everything. Time is ISK. Time is money.
I consider time a currency, though, not a function of industry. You have ISK, you have actual dollars, then you have ISK, then you have. Well, I used to have Aurum. You don't have that anymore. Then you have time, but then the last currency. What do you think it is?
Plex.
Nope. Oh, Plex. Yeah, there's one more after Plex.
Skill points.
Oh shoot! Now we're getting into LP points and all that stuff, and you're right.
No.
So there's one big one that time buys you. Time fused with action buys you reputation.
Yeah,
and that is a currency that's the hardest currency in EVE to gain.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I like the idea of time, but I'm not sure if it's. I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing to talk about and explore, maybe now or but later. But time. In terms of industry, I think where he's going is vertical versus horizontal. Vertical market, it takes me, I have a X amount of time in order to get the item. A horizontal market, I just go to the marketplace and get it. And so in 5 minutes, I can be up and running and doing what I want versus in 6.7 days or after I train 5 days of skills and whatever. Right.
Yeah,
and so
right. Like if
certainly is an element there.
If I had enough ISK, I could buy basically all of the Tritanium in HiSec in a couple minutes, right? And I would have, how many man hours is that, right? That somebody had to work to produce that. And so that's one of the main advantages of the horizontal integration strategy is that you've decoupled, if you're just sourcing everything from the market, you've decoupled production from man hours. It makes no difference to me how long somebody else took to mine that Veldspar. It only matters to me how much ISK they are willing to hold out for in exchange for it, right? But if you're pursuing a strategy of vertical integration and you're trying to source everything yourself, then your production will always bear a linear relation to man hours invested. Whether it's yours or somebody else's, you can squeeze more efficiency out of those man hours with better equipment or by training up more alts, but you're going to run into a pretty severe limitation sooner or later, well, more likely sooner, if you insist on controlling every part of the production process. But if I have 10 billion ISK in my wallet and I want 500,000 Veldspar, like, why would I mine that myself? right? I mean,
is this where people are getting hung up that are angry at these changes that are coming through? There seems to be a variety of reactions to the industry upgrade, but the majority, I think, are, this is going to be cool. We like this. We're very interested in it. We've seen some people, like an article that came out today. I didn't finish reading it. I need to go back and read it, by Julius Doctor on INN, that talks about, and I think it's a 1 part out of 3 parts article, and this one's already 4,000 words long. But he's basically saying, like, CCP is developing a caste system, and I think it goes to the corner of the Imperium. I think has talked about this. They don't like these changes that are coming through, the industrial upgrade changes. They talk in terms of, I can't do what I did before. You're just taking something away from me. Like, speak to those people having a problem with the changes. Is it they can't remain vertical? Is it more work now to stay vertical? Is that the problem?
Yeah. It's going to be a lot more work, because it used to be you could root in one place and get most of what you needed. And then they diversified the ore distribution. So if you insist on having a fully vertical enterprise, previously you could just do everything in a system or two in nullsec. Now you need to, what you really want to find is a high sec system that's next to a low sec and next to a nullsec, all within, 6 or 7 jumps. And it's a lot more work, but you can still basically do what you were doing. Your gameplay just got a lot more complicated.
Right, with traffic considerations too, or, those are going to be heavily trafficked areas probably.
Yeah, well, it's like, if you're in nullsec, you don't really think about Concord that much, but you better think about them if you're in high sec and you have your safety set to red, which a lot of people do in nullsec, right? You could accidentally Concord yourself. So that got more complicated, and now you're going to have to go into wormhole space, you're going to have to do reactions, it just got way more complicated to vertically integrate. And I think the people who are going to suffer the most from this change are not the little guy. If I have to hear it, this will only hurt the little guy one more time. It's like they've already lost.
Doesn't it feel like they're taking the little guy prisoner and saying, you shoot at me, you're going to kill this little guy first?
Yeah, well, look, when goons say that something is going to hurt the little guy, they mean it's going to hurt them. And, fine, whatever. They can't just come out and say that, so fine. What it's really going to do is it's going to hurt the people who insist on verticality. But who insist on controlling the entire production process themselves. But by creating all those little barriers and all that diversity of activities within the production chain, is going to place more value on the people who master specific parts of it, right? Like, mining in high sec is not the same as mining in a wormhole space. Well, if I can do both, I'm more valuable to my organization. If I decide to only do one, then I'm less valuable, right? So it's going to create barriers, and that's going to hurt people who only want to do that one thing. It's going to make it more difficult for one or a smaller group of people to fully vertically integrate. But it'll have virtually no effect on horizontal integration, because, I'm not going to do reactions myself for the same reason I'm not going to mine myself.
You'll just move with the market. You'll just move with the flow.
Yeah, what I'm going to do about these auto seal integrity preservers or whatever, if I want to build a battleship, is I'm going to put a new slot on my spreadsheet. I'm going to factor that price into my cost of production. I'm going to pass it on to the consumer. And I'm probably going to make a lot more ISK on that battleship after these changes than I did before, because all these barriers have kicked out the vertically integrated people, right? They're going to say, well, I can't mine wormhole gas by myself, so I'm going to go build something else. And I don't have to compete with those people. So I expect the price of the more complicated items is going to increase, not primarily because the build cost has increased, although it will, but because there are going to be fewer people offering those items, because a whole swath of industrialists have just gotten kicked out of the market because they can't vertically integrate. they can't control the entire process of production. They can only control 80% of it or whatever. So just build something else, and I don't have to compete with them.
Yeah, it's true in Eve though. You made a comment about the changes locking people out, right? But with every door that closes in Eve, 3 usually open, right? Sort of. Maybe the numbers are off, but you get my point. And I think there'll just be a shift. This has happened many times over 15, 16 years in this game. Something changes and there's chaos and hands are in the air. Oh my God, how do I? And then very quickly people find a way, right? And then they'll find a method. But change is what upsets people. And I think you're right. There are some people who have worked very hard to scale their number of characters and 1 or 2 friends to be very vertically integrated across a number of products through size and stuff, and that did break, and so those people will scream the loudest.
Cassifin says, as the little guy, my point of view is that these changes are great and I can't wait. And then Empower 27 says, think of the children. And that's just exactly what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Darwin said that the organism that survives is not the strongest. It's the one that can adapt the most quickly to change. And, from my point of view is utterly trivial to discuss whether or not this is good for the game. Or, what I would do if I were CCP, or, what is good game design, or what's going to help the new bro or whatever. We're in this environment. We've chosen to be here, and we're going to try to succeed. We're going to succeed or not according to the rules as they have been given to us. And let me also say about this scarcity phase, a lot of people have been complaining about it, often justifiably. But if you remember, before the scarcity changes came in, the number one complaint of players is that there's too much stuff. People have too much ISK. Loss has no meaning. Everything has been flat and valueless, and players were driving for this. They asked for it, and CCP gave it to them, good and hard. Now we're going to have to adapt.
The idea that you could have suicide dreads. If you think about that term, it's crazy that you would take a ship, a dreadnought, right? Think about what a dreadnought means in a science fiction film. Like Darth Vader's ship is a dreadnought. You don't suicide those things, to take out a Death Star every Wednesday or something. That's not how the universe should work. So the idea of dreadnoughts not being suicided away, to me, has a lot of appeal. Now, you still have a ton of Titans that need destroying, so something has to kill those, and dreadnoughts were good at that. But the idea that they were just so expendable, you literally would throw T1 stuff on it and just get it destroyed. That started to happen with Titans. They started throwing there was a concept in PL called the T1 Titan, and it was basically just throw T1s on it. They're so cheap that you don't need to put in all the purple stuff or the blue stuff to really get a lot out of it. You just blow it up and build another one. So something went wrong. I think everybody can agree with that. But it would be nice to get back to suicide nothing. Everything that's a capital ship is valuable, and you need to try to live instead of using it as ammunition for something.
Yeah. I mean, I can see a destroyer or a frigate as ammunition, but a Titan, come on.
And that's what's getting cheaper, right? And can be built by new players and young players and whatever else. All the destroyers, battle cruiser, destroyer, all the way down to frigate, super cheap to build. Let that be the fodder.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it should be a serious commitment when you put your Titans out or your dreadnoughts or whatever. Yeah, it takes a long time to build. Yeah, it's going to hurt if you lose them. So think twice.
Yeah, not everybody agrees with the idea that suicide dreads go away, but I actually really do. Like the idea of suicide dreads, that idea needs to be like made extinct. All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover, or Rundle?
No, I think I've enjoyed the conversation. I like to try to categorize, because I think we've categorized it to a degree, and I think now that allows us even or anyone else to talk about changes upcoming in one of those 4 areas. And then the area where I was going is we could also overlay gameplay, how do new characters start, how do existing characters take advantage of one of those 4 areas. I like the division. I think it's very engaging topic.
Yeah, I think it needs clarification too. Pservad, do you have anything else?
Can't think of it.
Well, this was your first podcast. You jumped on camera. How was it?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
You survived.
Survived.
All right. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Pservad. Thanks, Rundle. Thank you guys for hanging out with us at Talking in Stations. We will be back tomorrow with more Talking in Stations.
Bye, everyone.